come to the end of this wild journey with Ren and Stimpy's revival in 2003. This time, the kid gloves are off. Something that Spumco fans had asked themselves since he was fired from the original was, what if John could do Ren and Stimpy again without the restrictions of children's television? Well, he'll give you Ren torturing animals, leering at women in bikinis, and sawing a log on Stimpy's back simulating gay sex, and Stimpy being pregnant when he was really constipated. The birth still happens though. Him making out with a duck causing him to give birth to several cat-duck hybrids, and having his butt crack swiped by Ren for building the roof before the house. All of this can be found in Ren and Stimpy's adult party cartoon. Are you happy now? Is this what you people wanted? Okay, so the idea for these two to return came about when reruns of the original series aired on VH1 in 2001 to great ratings. Luckily for him, John had made friends with Fred Siebert, the head of Frederator Studios, who used his connections at Viacom to convince someone to revive Ren and Stimpy without restrictions. Spike TV decided to accept the new show as part of their adult animation block that included Stripperella with Pamela Anderson and Gary the Rat with Kelsey Grammer. The network were aware of John's reputation at this point, so the deal they made was for him to produce 6 half-hour episodes with a TV movie as a bonus. The movie clearly didn't happen, and the 6 episodes were produced and delivered, just not on time, in typical Spumco fashion. Outside of the first 2 episodes, Onward and Upward and Ren Seeks Help, the studio once again struggled to meet deadlines. Fire Dogs 2 was delivered the day it aired. They had to split it in 2 and air the first part after the original Fire Dogs. The show was pulled after sponsors were nervous about the sexual content in Naked Beach Frenzy. This show was in the same programming block as Stripperella, a show that censors breasts during its broadcast, and no one complained about its content. On the DVD of the show, John tried to pin the episode getting pulled on the Janet Jackson Super Bowl incident, but that didn't happen until February of 2004, and this was in June of 2003. Despite the animation block being dissolved, the studio finished up the last 2 episodes with what little resources and talent they had left. John urged a lot of them to stay, confident in his hope there will be another season. One of them thought this of him when he said it.
You're a doofusy, doofus brainhead, doofus head, doofus face, doofus butt, doofanooski, doofusopolis, doofatania, doofus unto others, maximum overdrive, doofus!
I will get into more of the production problems along with everything else wrong with the show. Let's begin. The first thing you'll notice about this show is its animation. We get the tropes we've come to know and love about Ren and Stimpy, like paint drop backgrounds and hyper-detailed stills. But the major change in this department is how the backgrounds are done. Do you guys remember how they were done in Son of Stimpy? That's the approach they take with the backgrounds in this show. A seemingly mature show needs a mature background style in comparison to the picture book style of the original show. One of the many problems from behind the scenes you'll hear in this video is John's inability to be clear on what he wants, as exemplified by him making a background artist redo scenes 5 times. A production manager brought him one of the paintings and told him it cost him $40,000. The work done on these backgrounds is impressive, but there would be occasions where they would reuse them for different scenes or barely change them going to another shot. I can recall something like this being seen in cartoons from the 1980s. To complement the backgrounds, the expressions the characters have are taken more from real life. John believed that all the poses put into a scene make it richer. This approach to the expression was seen in Weekend Pussy Hunt as well. However, when industry veteran Greg Duffel was called in to help finish off the show, he observed that all the details on the characters were a nightmare to keep track of, a sentiment echoed by other animators. Perhaps John should have stuck to something resembling the original Ren and Stimpy for the episodes, and then went balls to the wall on the realism for the TV movie. The way the studios put these poses together vary in how fluid the movement is. Much like the Carbuncle episodes of the original show, we have incredibly fluid sequences. Then there are bits where it comes off as choppy, most often when they move fast, and even botching the lip sync on the characters' mouths to the dialogue.
Oh, what I'm going to do to Stimpy. Oh, yes, it's so good. Look, rat's ass. Look at this.
Idiot. See me do it?
See you doing it.
I've done it.
Yes, you have. Not a baby anymore.
I just can't keep my hands on that ball.
You want that? Come on, go for it, idiot.
Don't you dare put that nasty instrument in me!
Stevie, there's something in the pot.
There are more reasons for why the show was animated like this. The next one being that a lot of the crew were green. Despite the advertising saying the gang's all back, it's actually the people who sided with John when he was fired from the original show. Jim Smith, Vincent Waller, Richard Purcell, Eddie Fitzgerald, Bob Jakes, and Kelly Armstrong. Bob Camp took over the original show when John was fired because Bob had a bad taste in his mouth from working with him, and I think John still holds a grudge against him, which is a shame because this show could have used his sense of humor that was present back then. And Lynn Naylor was only around for the first few episodes of the original show because she felt like John wasn't taking the deadlines seriously enough. So she left the studio and him to find work elsewhere. John then attempted to blacklist her from the industry by saying she was just the girlfriend who did nothing on Ren and Stimpy. Fortunately for Naylor, Bruce Timm saw right through this malarkey and gave her a job on a little show you might have heard of. It was called Batman the Animated Series. Because a lot of them were green, this meant he spent time during production training them to do the show's style. They began production in the summer of 2002, and they needed to have the 6 episodes done for its premiere in June of the following year. Because of this, he left his regular collaborators to be overworked. Vincent Waller was spread thin as the LA Studios art director, Richard Purcell barely wrote anything that was used, Jim Smith was stuck correcting other people's mistakes and storyboarding instead of working on layouts, and Kelly Armstrong didn't animate a scene of the show at Carbuncle. Hardly anyone had contact with John. Much like in the original series, John decided to spread his control to every department he could, whether he knew what he was talking about or not. The original plan was for him to take on a supervising role on the show and for others to direct most of the episodes. Vincent Waller was supposed to direct Onward and Upward, and Derek Bond was supposed to direct Ren Seeks Help. I don't know how either of those would make those episodes any better. Other potential directors were Jim Smith and Bob Jakes, but John ended up directing all of them. John Kricfalucci in 2002 was a different person compared to how he was in 1992, and the people around him were different. That includes those in the role of producer. When recalling their time on the original series, Kelly Armstrong applauded Libby Simon for her ability to keep things on track as much as she could. The producer on this show was Kevin Claude, the man who had been working with John since 1997, and he and his associates didn't put up much of a fight on this show, and when he did, John didn't listen. That included how to deal with the new crew members. With him training the new staff, they were often scolded for not following his roughs exactly. The roughs he provided were reportedly incredible to look at, but needed to be touched up or finished. This caused the boarders a lot of stress in figuring out how to clean them up, what to leave in, and what to erase. Stefan Stefanelli said he started recording the storyboard pitches because he wasn't sure if he forgot something or if John told him different info. He then felt it necessary to add breakdowns to the layouts the artists went through hell to draw for the animators at Carbuncle Cartoons. John? This is Carbuncle you're sending these layouts to. This is the studio that made the best looking and animated episodes of the original show. The studio that can make the layouts work in animation. You don't need to give them breakdowns. Unfortunately, this time they were under contract to not deviate from the drawings. No exceptions. Kelly Armstrong even regrets involving Carbuncle's overseas studio, Big Star Animation, in the overly complicated mess they all had to rush through. And to make things worse, Spumco blew their budget on the first 3 episodes. Executives from Spike TV came down and were understandably upset about this. John did explain they needed more money and they gave him $500,000 to finish the episodes. Except that wasn't enough to do that, but they wouldn't give him any more. When he realized this, he locked himself in his house in Canada doing revisions and cutting animatics when his crew needed him. And it was because of these money issues that led to Carbuncle looking to take legal action against him. Now the other thing you'll notice that's different are the stars. John makes his return to voicing Ren Hoek in over a decade, and his take on the character is different.
Stimpy, these are rich white people. They're stinking with money that they make by exploiting honest lower-class people. Cute nothing. They're deadbeats. Babies have the world's easiest life. People feed them, they clothe them, they carry them everywhere they go, and they expect nothing in return.
I'm sorry, Stimpy. I don't know why I do these things to you. I'm just a pig. Please forgive me.
Pull them up. Please, pull them up. Pull up the pants.
Stimpy! Oh, Stimpy!
Stimpy!
I remember him saying he forgot how to do him in the infamous Howard Stern show interview that had the following: an awkward confrontation between him and Billy West, and him mentioning Sody Pop is underage when Stern said she has big cans and nice legs.
Ew!
Or his performance was simply the result of either age or him neglecting to take care of his voice in the decade before the show. Despite his voice, he still brings good performances. For the lines where he's screaming, I'm imagining John in his late 40s screaming in the recording booth.
My seed! All mine! I'm a stag! You hear me? A super stag!
Sure you are, John. That's why you pursue teenage girls to the point of begging. More on that after the review. This version of Ren leans pretty heavily into his mean side, much like he was back in the games era of the original show. Ren isn't the only person with a different voice this time around, as Stimpy is sounding odd as well. Billy West was asked to reprise the role, but he turned it down because he knew the material was terrible and his career would take a hit if he took part in it. John did try to convince him to take the job, but Billy had a hard time making him understand he wasn't interested. He reportedly thought Kevin Claude was a joke as well. So now we have Eric Bauza as the voice of Stimpy in this show. His take on the character is okay.
To me!
If he's directed that way. We still get bits like him getting smacked for being stupid, which loses its spark in Altruists and gets uncomfortable in Stimpy's Pregnant. There's him being an emotional parent like he was in Son of Stimpy and Fake Dad in Stimpy's Pregnant, and then he's a jealous partner when he notices Ren leering at women at the beach in Naked Beach Frenzy, which he responded with by showing off a thong he just bought. Of course, he gets punished by being flung into a woman's breasts? Do you guys remember when I mentioned their relationship could be vaguely gay? Well, you don't have to wonder about that anymore, as the first episode contains Stimpy pestering Ren for sex, a pitcher and catcher moment, and a callback leading to them doing it under the sheets. There was backlash to that scene, and in response to it, John decided to blame an artist at Carbuncle Cartoons for it. He said he left it in because he felt sorry for them. But Bob Jakes and Colin Giles said the sequence was underposed and needed more layouts. Oh, and John was the one who drew the sex scene. The subtext of their relationship being brought to the front in this show and the jokes they make about it destroys the charm of seeing these two together on top of how they're interpreted. The other characters who appear in this show are this guy who doesn't have a name or any other characteristic outside of his thick Latino accent. He's the bartender in Onward and Upward who kicks out Ren and Stimpy to save his business.
Get out of my fucking bar, you vermin sons of bitches!
Then he was the one who sold Stimpy the thong in Naked Beach Frenzy, and he was the one who posed for the black velvet painting of Mexican Elvis. Yes, really. Mr. Horse makes his return appearance here and plays the therapist Ren sees in Ren Seeks Help, who later calls him crazy.
Tell me, what do you think is wrong with me?
I'll tell you what's wrong with you.
You're fucking crazy! That's what's wrong with you!
Really? It took you a decade to figure that out? And he comes back and Stimpy's pregnant to play the doctor who delivers Stimpy's baby. But it's actually constipation he was suffering from. He's reunited with his sheep girlfriend who's his nurse. We get glimpses into their relationship with Mr. Horse misinterpreting her wanting his prognosis for sex.
Doctor, what's your prognosis?
You want that prognosis, huh? Okay. Where do you want it? Front or back?
Doctor, not that kind of prognosis!
And then he punches her for no reason after he resolves to delivering the little turd.
That man is all horse.
When Dirty Dog hits Cigarettes' girl, it was another thing to add to the list of things that make him a mangy mutt. Here, it's just random. Never have I been so confused by a man hitting a woman since Bongo. During his childhood, Ren came across a frog he would shove firecrackers in, use his tricycle wheel to drive his guts out, and electrocute him with a car battery and jumper cables. When the frog dared Ren to do the deed, he refuses, believing that not finishing him off felt better to him. Later that night, he begged Ren to kill him, but he drew the shade over him.
Wake up and kill me, man! Get up, you bastard! Get up and finish the job! Don't send me home to my wife and kids like this! Hey! What are you doing? For the love of Jesus, finish me off! You bastard!
Ren's parents are shown in Ren Seeks Help. His father is a priest and his mother tends to the home. He calls Ren into the living room to make him finish off the frog he's been torturing for a while. There was a bit where the mother took the gun from Ren's hands and gave him a chainsaw to commit the deed. As he appears to be putting the frog out of his misery, the two start making out over the sound of the chainsaw. One of them would be mentioned in Stimpy's Pregnant when Ren is talking about how he and Stimpy conceived their child and how much of a virile stud he is to his mother. How much do you want to bet her remembering his dad saying things like that? While they're busy going to town on each other, he goes to throw him in the rubbish, refusing to kill him.
You're not gonna kill me? Does it still hurt? Oh God, yes! My every nerve is on fire! Have a wonderful life! In the pain, let me out, help me!
After Ren beats Mr. Horse to death with his gun and gets carted off by asylum orderlies, the frog comes back to finally kill himself with the gun. But it was one of those gag guns where it would shoot out a bang flag, and I think he still lives on as another cruel joke. The fire chief comes back in Fire Dogs 2 for a minute before turning into Ralph Bakshi. This sequel is similar in nature to Dumb and Dumber 2, where I bet it was in high demand at the time, but over time the audience moved on. But then we finally got it, and it was a disappointing follow-up. In this episode, Ren and Stimpy follow Ralph and be a witness to his antics that were based on real things he did, like an incident he had with a hooker. Bakshi plays a fictionalized version of himself. In this version is an emotionally unstable maniac who Ren and Stimpy are afraid of but don't want to leave, much like a recurring story type in the games era of the original show. The episode ends with him firing them after making them promise to look after him until he dies and puts them through a night of hell thinking they were circus midgets. The lifeguard from Naked Beach Frenzy goes psychotic on Ren for trying to grab at some bosom, whacking him with his boardies and wrestling him in the first round. He would remain nude for the rest of the episode. As he's signing autographs, one of the girls shouting she wants a lock of his pubes was funny. The next time he shows up is to unintentionally thwart Ren's latest attempt to get some assets by giving him mouth-to-mouth, with tongue. I don't think that's how it works. That moment could have worked if we saw that he was imagining making out with one of the female lifeguards, and then show it to be the male lifeguard. Instead, what we got was just prolonged and gross. The last one is where Ren stole Stimpy's bottle of tanning oil, thinking that he was going to rub it on the back of a beautiful woman. Instead, he had to tend to the psychotic brown-backed gorilla known as the lifeguard. He noticed who was tending to him and accuses Ren of making him kiss him when he was the one who shoved his tongue into his mouth while performing CPR. He chases both of them off the beach and screams at them to never come back. In Altruists, they meet a homeless widow and her headless son who needed money, food, and a home.
I've just been evicted! My fucking husband's dead! And he left me no money!
What deadbeat doesn't leave money for their family when they die? Ren and Stimpy do get them all that through dubious means, but get stopped by a black cop with an Irish accent. The widow gets them out of trouble by telling him they did it to help her. This manages to touch his heart, reminding him of when his wife died when she was hit by a bus, just moments before he showed up. And he not only lets them off the hook for their crimes, but gives them a whole day to steal anything they want while he caresses the widow's breasts. This came after a moment where he said she fit his criteria of a good woman based on her physical attributes. Remember, ladies, it's not your personality, your character, or that you're a joy to be around. It's how well you're stacked. I sincerely hope you guys see the sarcasm in that statement. And Mr. and Mrs. Pipe make a cameo in Altruists as the people Ren and Stimpy are robbing. As they pay witness to their crimes, they comment on the quality of the show as a commentary on how terrible writer-driven shows are. But this show is terrible, so this moment comes off as ironic. Now, the episodes themselves consisted of stories that Nickelodeon rejected during the original show's run. Here, they cut out the bumpers and the episodes are extended to half an hour, some even longer than that. A few of them have abysmal plotting. Onward and Upward is a string of gross-out jokes with little else happening. This was the reason they rejected it, and the premise couldn't sustain 11 minutes, so what chance did it have as a 22-minute episode? Fire Dogs 2 has us watching Ralph Bakshi mistreat Ren and Stimpy, struggle to give birth, and last 12 seconds with a woman. Like I said earlier, this episode is much like the games episode where a third character abuses Ren and Stimpy, and they do nothing about it because they care more about their jobs and their home. The next problem you may have picked up on is the show's terribly slow pacing, with its biggest offender being Altruists. This episode clocks in at nearly 40 minutes, and there are a ton of sequences that could either have been cut or shortened into a montage. What adds to this bloating is another one of John's weird production tools, exposure sheets that were 11 by 17 inches, one for action and the other for the animation. This is where he attempted to overhaul the beat system, as in timing the movement to the music.
No, anyway. Anyway, it's not like that. Admit it.
sheets always had different lengths to accommodate different beats, and the animators had a hard time working with this approach. This serves to further deflate the impact of the humor. The fun of the original series was that it was a kid show that had tons of things that were inappropriate for children at that time, and perhaps a lot of it still is. On top of popularizing gross out, it had quite a lot of innuendo to things like dog poop, condoms, and insinuating murder. It being a kid's show, you have to be clever, sneaky, and pretty infrequent about it. But since they are now an adult cartoon, which has that content ceiling removed, this means the elements they're known for are cranked up to the max. This approach was to the detriment to a lot of the humor. There were reports that Spike TV wanted John to crank up the raunchiness in order to compete with South Park, and he was apparently feeling pressure about it, even going so far as to add bare breasts to it, reasoning that South Park did it as well. But even back then, that show never showed boobs. No, the movie doesn't count. And this is a part of the misconception a lot of people had about South Park that played familiar style of shows. South Park is crude and vulgar, yes, but it's also got pop culture and social satire, especially since the crew churn out an episode in 6 days. When they were crude, they didn't linger on a single joke. The original Ren and Stimpy jokes, you could see the punchline coming, but it still hit, sometimes literally. But here, the setups are so stretched out that the punchline is far too deflated to get the laugh it was looking for. Going back to John feeling like he was under pressure, if you look back at his work beginning in 1997, you'd see he was pretty eager to do that kind of material. If the actual jokes don't work, John wanted to load the episodes with Easter eggs. In Naked Beach Frenzy, Ren and Stimpy riding dolphins into the sunset and them riding a rocket into space in Altruists is much like the ending to Rubber Nipple Salesman, where they rode off into the sunset on bulls. In Stimpy's Pregnant, Stimpy's son Stinky makes a quick cameo, and Dr. Stupid makes a return in Onward and Upward. And on the off occasion, they'd break the fourth wall. They were either whatever or didn't make sense. Mr. and Mrs. Pipe commenting on the robbery like it's a writer-driven TV show came off as ironic given this show is terrible. And the moment in Stimpy's Pregnant where Stimpy exposes his breasts and Ren scolds him, saying they're on a family network, which doesn't make sense because Spike TV was advertised as a man's network and the programming block was called Cartoons for Adults. Let's hop back into the show's vulgarity one more time to talk about how it depicts its women. In this, we've seen Ren's mother, who most likely tends to the house while his father works, Mr. Horse's nurse, and the widow who lived in a hole with her headless son. There's also the beach girls in the episode Naked Beach Frenzy. These girls frolic on the beach and say out loud, obviously titillating things in an innocent way.
I dropped my ball. I know. I guess I'll bend over and pick it up. Oh, darn these tan lines. You know, it's such a beautiful day today. I think I'll go natural and tan topless. You know, Joni, this is one of the nicest change rooms I've ever stripped in.
I can't let you do that by yourself.
You mean you'll wash me?
Kind of guy I am.
This is so fancy. Slather that leather, Mr. Man.
Done.
I can't believe what a luxury establishment this is.
Fun fact, did you know back when he was a kid, John's father put a fat stack of Playboy magazines in his son's closet because he feared he was gay? Or because he spent his time drawing instead of chasing skirts? Well, Mr. Creasfalucci, are you proud of your boy now? The punchline to a lot of the jokes in the episode is the offending character rightfully getting punished. As I stated earlier, the show's approach to the humor kills this premise. So these girls are just eye candy and used for witless sex jokes. To be honest, if you look back through their catalog, their female characters don't have a lot of personality or much screen time. Some would point to Waffle Woman as an example of a good female character by Spumco, but she was created in the games era of Ren and Stimpy, so she doesn't count. In Spumco Productions, female characters were either a background character, played support to, or fawned over another character. Not that there's anything wrong with that, or were eye candy. Dr. Gene Poole from the Ripping Friends may have had a title that demanded respect, but that wasn't the focus of her character if these poses aren't a clue. What doctor do you folks know that do these kinds of poses? This show had a few ideas that went unused, which in hindsight should have been instead of what they went with. Life Sucks sees Ren and Stimpy talk about the tragedies of history. This was supposed to be part of the bonus TV movie, with the events from that episode being the catalyst for the events in Ren Seeks Help. The story was only partially boarded and voice acted. The Big Switch was meant to be the sequel to Ren Seeks Help, where he and Stimpy debate whether being a psycho or a moron is better. This is much like the episode Who's Stupid Now from the original show. I don't know how they would have been able to make it better if they redid it. Along with Fishing Trip, which was loosely based on Bassmasters. The Wilderness Adventure, an episode where they go on a hunting trip with George Liquor, was originally turned down because of its content. It was going to be part of the show, but the network wanted to own the rights to Liquor, and John didn't want to give him up again, so it never happened. The next three ideas are for fake commercials. My Little Ass is a parody of My Little Pony before that franchise was cool, Powdered Toast Man's Rolling Tobacco, and Log for Moms. How many of you want to bet it would have been a line of dildos? The Succubus was based on his relationship with Robin Bird. Really, John? She was the problem? And the last three ideas don't have proper titles. First is a Shampoo Master episode. I wonder what they would have made him do. Then a Mike Barrier episode. He's an animation historian, and it's based on what he thought made a good cartoon, but he stopped responding to John. And finally, there was going to be an episode about John's father. Ren and Stimpy's adult party cartoon is the culmination of unchecked bad habits cultivated over a decade of being away from this duo. The runtime of these episodes kills what punch the humor might have had. The dynamic between our stars had become stale, and the areas they go to with them end up damaging them. The backgrounds and the character acting is good stuff, but the animation is pretty mixed. It might have had a fighting chance had they gone with some of their other ideas, and John learned when to get involved and when to back off. But because he never learned a thing, his show crumbled. Adult Party Cartoon had drained the studio financially, and with Carbuncle looking to seek legal action, John decided to declare bankruptcy and officially close down Spumco in 2006. His career since then has been limited to doing commercials for Comcast, Rakatu, General Motors, and For Real Milkshakes, bumpers for Adult Swim, promos for a UFC pay-per-view fight, and doing freelance work for Miley Cyrus during the time she was supposed to be adult in her music career, the way former child stars think being an adult means talking about sex and doing drugs. In 2012, he began a Kickstarter campaign for a cartoon called Cans Without Labels. After it was funded, he missed the promised release date of 2013 by 6 years, instead choosing to focus his attention on starting up a brand new animation studio with the hope of bringing jobs back stateside. Cans Without Labels was a poorly made cartoon, and if you want to hear more about how much it sucks, Josh and I take it apart in a video which you can find it in the iCard above. Adult Party Cartoon was so bad it ruined Ren and Stimpy's chances at another revival when Nickelodeon were bringing back other shows like Rocko's Modern Life, Invader Zim, Hey Arnold, and Rugrats. But in 2020, Comedy Central announced they're giving the slow-witted cat and easily irritable dog a chance. Some people weren't too happy about this. Robin Bird started a petition to have the show shelved as it would bring John back into the spotlight. The reason why she would be unhappy about this news is this. In 2018, Bird and Katie Rice went to BuzzFeed to tell their story of their experience with Chris Vellucci when they were teenagers. In 1994, John responded to a videotape Robin sent him, talking about her dreams of working in the animation industry and how much he admired him. He loved it so much that he sent her art supplies, toys, and promised to help her achieve her dream. Here is a list of things that John did to her during their time together. During her first visit to him in LA, he touched her through her PJs. When she moved in with him after she graduated from high school, they had sex many times. One of them ended up getting her pregnant, which meant she got an abortion. Oh, and John took photos and showed them off to all his friends. Everyone in the studio knew about his relationship with Robin, but no one wanted to make a fuss about it by calling him out on how wrong it is. The relationship finally ended when she decided she had enough and left him in 2002, during the production of Adult Party Cartoon. Something that affected John and that show, but it's good she left. The other girl in the story is Katie Rice, who met him at around the same time he met Robin. Unlike with her, the following happened in 3 different times. When they were keeping in touch with each other, John often flirted with her, whether it was writing things like, "I bet you'll be up to no good, just like me." Their online chats quickly turned sexual. I'm surprised the FBI wasn't all like,
Hold it right there, scumbag. We monitored your little online chat. Now you're coming with us.
No. What the hell just happened?
and he tried to get her to do phone sex with him. After his relationship with Robin ended, he begged Katie to be in a relationship with him. Dude, you're begging a teenage girl to be in a relationship with you. That's pathetic. When the two worked together on the music video for Weird Al Yankovic's Close But No Cigar, he did things like wait for her in the nude. That's something you find in Porky's, American Pie, and that episode of How I Met Your Mother where everyone was doing the naked man. But Katie didn't want to touch the naked man. He walked around with his penis sticking out of his pants and told her he was going to rape her, but he later said that it was a joke. That relationship ended as well when she discovered child porn on his computer. She had taken all this information to the police, but the LAPD didn't arrest and charge John, nor investigate the report because the statute of limitations on the crimes expired, hence the BuzzFeed article. John did respond to the allegations against him by releasing an 11-page apology letter to the women he hurt, something his lawyer advised him not to put out in its present state. In response to the article, he half admitted and half dismissed the allegations against him. In his apology attempt, he reflected on the good times they had together. This section takes up 6 pages and contains mostly images. He then apologizes to his fans, supporters, and family, and praises his former co-workers. He admits he was recently diagnosed with bipolar disorder and ADHD, which he blames his inability to control his impulses and obsessions on. This letter caused a lot of outrage on social media. Robin rejected it, seeing it as disingenuous, and Katie criticized him for using his mental health as a shield against the consequences for his bad behavior. And it couldn't stop what would happen next. Nickelodeon removed his photo from their studio. Ren and Stimpy reruns stopped airing. They used to air them late at night. iTunes removed the show from their store. Paramount Plus has made only 37 out of its 52 episodes available for streaming. How many of you want to bet the ones that were taken down were from the Spumco era? And the new studio he started up was shut down. And in 2020, in the Ren and Stimpy documentary, Happy Happy Joy Joy, he announced that he had retired from the animation industry after the article about him came out. Coming back to the future Ren and Stimpy reboot, though Robin had a right to be concerned, Comedy Central did make it clear that he wasn't going to be involved in its production and won't be receiving any money from it. Perhaps she thought he would lawyer up just to get a cut of it. You know, given what happened in the 90s with the original series and how he handled the recent allegations against him, that sounds like a possibility. I guess we'll have to wait and see with this one. And that was the wild and crazy history of Spumco. I hope you guys enjoyed this ride. There are a few people I'd like to give shout-outs to. My friend, Muck Putty animator Josh Marchant, for encouraging me to go through with this project. Thad Komrosky, the author of Sick Little Monkeys. That book provided me with a ton of info for the series. BuzzFeed News for making Robin Bird and Katie Rice's stories public. And to you folks who watch this series. I want to thank you for your patience with all the delays and your support by watching it and sharing it with your friends. I don't intend on making it a recurring habit when I attempt something like this again. At the end of this video will be a playlist for the series if you want to rewatch it, but next week I'm going to post a complete Spunkothon video with all the videos together in one if you guys aren't too keen on the playlist. If you all want to stay updated on future videos, be sure to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, and DeviantArt. The links are in the description, and if you want to be the first to know when a new video will be up, ring that bell after you subscribe. Thank you all for watching.